All right. I don't know about you guys, but growing up in my neighborhood, we had ice cream trucks. Do you guys have that where you grew up?
Yeah,
Going
we had
around
a
your neighborhood?
Schwann's. We had a Schwann's truck that drive around.
How many times can the ice cream truck go around your block before it gets annoying?
Oh, God.
How many times?
I think Tyrese Gibson, I was on Twitter the other day, and he tweeted out a video of this kid like breakdancing and doing this like crazy dance to the ice cream truck song. Like, that dude must really love ice cream. So apparently some people just don't care, man. They
just keep it going.
Down.
Because there's an ice cream truck that goes around and around my neighborhood. There's a lot of kids, but they're not out playing right now. But you heard the music for like 40 minutes straight. And I think that's a bit much. Luckily, my kids are young. They're not screaming for ice cream. But
I can empathize. I was where I was living before I moved to this house. There was an ice cream truck, and I think the guy had a lady friend in the neighborhood, because he would stop the truck, leave it on, and it would just sit in this one little cul-de-sac. And I wouldn't be going out there and looking at it, but it would sit there, and I'd listen to it. I mean, at least 20, 30 minutes just sitting in that one spot. And then he got back in and then drove away.
If the ice cream trucks are rocking.
I mean.
already, because it's like, dude, he pulled it over, left it on, got a quickie, went back, served ice cream.
I mean,
done.
Hopefully wash his hands.
This is Crowns and Crows, your Crowfall podcast. I'm dragging with me Lakes and Valor. It's time for the rundown. EKs are a hot topic again. I don't think they've stopped being a hot topic. Now for sale with coins. The 7th Beacon hates Shadowbane players, so if you don't know what's going on, maybe you can ask Valor a little bit about that. Like that. Tully and Thomas discuss combat. Strike teams. There we go. That's all it is. Topics of the day. We're going to talk about coins. Today's hot update brings up a lot of discussion points of how the game's going to work with the economy and player interaction. We're going to one of the hot community topics is alliances and vassals. We're going to talk about how player interactions work with different groups. And if we have time, I think we're going to talk about EKs again. And I think it's the same thread we brought up last week. But it doesn't stop. It's still at the top, so we're still going to talk about this. There's lots of discussion points. Todd chimed in with a lot of talk, a lot of points that we're going to bring up about how players interact and what kind of player behavior that they want to promote and expect. So we're going to see a little bit about that. So before we start, make sure you follow us on Twitter at Crowns and Crows. Make sure you send us emails, crownsandcrows@gmail.com. And, of course, look below the stream. Get Gamevox, download it, join the conversation, pop up. We'll bring you in at any point during the show. If you have something to talk about on topic, feel free to join us. I think we got the volume stuff worked out. We did some testing pre-show, so I think that was one of the number one complaints, that either I talk over everybody and the sound sucks. So there we go. All right, coins. Let's talk about coins. Did I forget anything on the intro, guys? It's been a long day for me.
I mean, did you touch on the big community news piece about a particular guild leader getting roasted?
That was during the rundown. I don't know if I didn't want to touch it.
We didn't talk about the roast yet.
Oh man,
I'm making coffee, guys.
We'll
nice
have
and
to get there.
I didn't bring it up. I don't like making fun of people on there's a serious webcast. Excuse me, webcast,
which we've been reminded about.
So, in any case, let's talk about today's big update. I think that's the number one topic we should really discuss because it has a lot of player implications, and it's the first real update that we got about the game mechanics that doesn't have to do with the player housing situation in the Eternal Kingdoms. So, we were talking a lot about this in pre-show, and Lakes had some really powerful opinions. I couldn't shut him up. I was like, save it for the show, man. So hopefully he still has that passion for it. So, essentially, Valor, why don't you break down what happened with the announcement?
Okay, so Crowfall did their announcement. Coins are now in-game. These are craftable coins, so it's not like they're just going to drop gold currency in. So there's apparently going to be a variety of different ores that you can craft into coins, and that will be what you can pay your upkeep costs in your EK. You can buy new buildings with them. It seems to be the standard that Ace will accept within Crowfall from players to buy items through their what would be called a cash shop. This, of course, set off a cacophony of
Big word.
a cacophony of. I don't know if I could say people were upset about it. My little poll was.
You had a good discussion going on.
No, it was a great discussion.
It wasn't very positive. It wasn't very negative. It was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, it was passionate.
I mean, I think essentially, we break it down as there's going to be a currency, and the major difference is, if people hear in currency, they usually think the number that upticks in your backpack, and it's like you have X amount of gold, X amount of silver, and it's just a number. I think the most important factor in all of this is your currency is now a physical item in your inventory. I think that's one most important factor of the whole thing that's different. So, yes, they're going to a currency, but to me, on the surface, it's the same thing as the bartering system. And Lakes, you were a huge fan of the bartering system. Why don't you talk about, from your experiences with Path of Exiles, what you like most about the bartering system in these games?
Well, first of all, I like the bartering system for a few reasons. Everything has a pro and a con. Let's talk about the con first. One of the cons of having like a bartering system is, if I have an item and I'm trying to sell it for something because I'm trying to craft or make something, and I need this specific item in return, there's no set currency per se. I don't have gold. I can't sell it for gold, so I have to almost trade with somebody that has the thing that I need, and you have to find that specific person. When you have a currency, it's kind of like that middle ground where you guys can meet on a even playing field, sell something. But in my opinion, I like the bartering system. I like items to be like, hey, how much is this worth to you? Someone's spamming that they want to buy something, you have it, and you can barter with them. How bad do they want it? When you give something like a coin that can be used in a cash shop some sort of value to it, now it has an outside value, a money value attached to it. There's just so much, like, I'm just reading over and over again the posts, and people don't think it's going to affect the economy, and it may not.
Well, let me ask you this. Typically in any game that doesn't have a predefined currency, like gold, silver, copper, in any other game, they usually develop a single item or rock or whatever as this is your currency piece. It happened in Diablo 2. I haven't really played Path of Exile since it first came out in beta, so I don't know what kind of developed in that economy. But did the same thing happen in that game?
Right, but you're not handcuffed. The thing is most people...
Are you handcuffed? But are you handcuffed in Crowfall, though?
Because some people just only maybe want coins now, because it's that middle ground. It's that set currency that I can use to buy out-of-game or in-game stuff within a cash shop. It's just that middle ground currency that people are going to use, to where the lesser items are not going to have the same kind of value as, say, a coin might have, because of the cash value that's attached to it. So one of the things that I liked about Path of Exile, and this is just a bartering system that I'm using that's kind of like a free-to-play game, so a lot of people have dabbled in it a little bit, is that if I don't have, let's say, Exalted Orbs or Chaos Orbs, I can use another currency that has the same value, but you know how much it's worth. It's like I can just sell 2 Alchemy Orbs or 10 Alchemy Orbs for this specific item, and I'm not handcuffed to using coins. That's my only thing. I don't like being handcuffed when it comes to a bartering system. I like things to, how much is it worth to you? And you still have that. Anrez is right. There are people out there that's saying, it's not going to affect it, and they're right. It may not. But it definitely does handcuff the fact of you trying to buy and sell items for specific things.
Valor, you're itching. Come on. You've been waiting for this all day.
All day. I mean, this was so exciting. I am not a big fan of how it has currently been proposed. I said this on the forums. My concern is that while on the surface, this is effectively just, you're adding a new resource to barter, as these coins would be, a refined resource. My issue is that they are going to be tethered to items in a cash shop that have a monetary value. I think what that does, especially if it allows people, you are able to buy VIP tickets from Artcraft with gold coins, that sets the value of gold coins. Weren't
you always ever going to be able to trade VIP tickets, though, for stuff?
You would be able to trade them, but people could typically be purchasing those for whatever the $15 for a ticket or however they want to break that down. You'd be buying that with the real life currency, U.S. dollar, Canadian dollar, whatever it might be, and then in game you get to sell that for whatever you want to sell it for. Now you already know what it's worth because you paid for it.
Well, here's an example. How many coins or whatever they end up being is a bottle of whiskey worth?
Well, if you were to, again, we're going to be saying, I don't know if you're just messing with me here, but
I am. Okay. I am, because Todd drank all of your whiskey.
Yeah.
So now
Todd
you have to give him.
And then he pissed me off. So that's just the kind of guy he is.
Well, he had a good point when he said that take out the word coin and put in any ore, sword, whatever crazy item that happened to be whatever. Isn't that the same thing? Isn't it? Okay,
no,
how is it different?
Because they would have, under my understanding, they would have allowed people to use any resource based off of whatever its current market value or something along those lines. What it is you are effectively buying something from a cash shop with your time.
Okay.
And they are artificially creating what your time is
worth. When the market would get, if the game is popular enough where you have an economy of a decent size where prices aren't going high and low erratically and things kind of stabilize as most economies do, whatever becomes the means of trade or whatever, well, maybe even if it's several things, maybe like a VIP ticket is worth 1,000 pieces of lumber or 100 copper or 20 gold or whatever it is. Isn't that essentially the same thing, though?
But it's player determined, and it can change based off of what players deem as important and valuable. And there could be multiple things equally valuable to different groups that would be able to use what is valuable to them to pay for that.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and explain. If you take somebody who is a passionate crafter, they live in the EK, they're building their crafting empire, and then you take somebody who is a passionate campaign player. They're focused on rising the ranks, competing in the tournaments, being the best in the world. The person who's focused on campaigns, he's going to be focused on resources that he can take into the campaign. Whereas the other person is going to be focused on resources that are more valuable to him in the EK.
Sure.
So now you're forcing both of them to value the same thing. Even though what good are gold coins going to do anybody in a campaign? They serve no purpose.
No purpose. Campaign. Well, there's a very good point because early on in the campaigns, even if you can't bring those gold coins in from whatever the embargo rules are or whatever the import-export rules are. You're starting that campaign with nothing, or maybe some resources, maybe some gear, or whatever it happens to be. You're essentially starting from ground zero with a standard bartering system. Go ahead, Lex.
I was going to say, so the pro and con to everything, I think the big underlying factor is in that cash shop, you can buy a building. If you can't buy that or sell that building to someone else within the game, then it's fine. However, if I can buy that building with cash and sell it for its equivalent of coins in-game, then therefore I would be able to use those coins to purchase items prior to campaigns, use those coins to purchase the top-tier items, import those in, spread out amongst several people I'm bringing into the campaign, and now I have a clear edge, which would be a pay-to-win. So the underlying factor is if I can purchase things within the cash shop, it cannot be traded.
So they did say in the now I gotta scroll through in the cash shop where. We read it verbatim so I don't misquote anybody here. There are a number of sinks in the game that will accept coins. You can use them to purchase parcels and buildings from the shop, upgrade your strongholds, pay maintenance, or you can treat coins as a raw material for crafting more items. Now, basically, it's all the cosmetic stuff in the game that people want. To me, it's essentially saving up IP to convert to RP to only buy skins in League of Legends, which I don't really care about if people want to do that.
Exactly. It's a plus. There's the pros and cons to everything. It does make that middle ground. It's easier for people to trade at this point because now you're selling an item for X amount of coins and you can use your coins to purchase the thing that you desperately wanted. And it saves you having to find that specific 1 out of 100 people that's willing to trade you this long sword for X amount of chickens. Now you can sell it to half of that amount of people, which will open up your pool of you selling. It's going to make it a lot easier for people that are into buying and selling items and the crafting system and the economy game.
See, I actually think that what my hang up on this whole thing is that as somebody in a campaign, you're going through, you're buying your resources, you're doing all these things. Then you come out and you sell them for gold coins, and then you have to take those coins and go buy something else. And all of that is going to be determined based off of what gold coins can buy in a cash shop. And anything that Artcraft introduces to a cash shop will have a massive effect on the economy, just as like what we saw in Arcade.
What if it's just a sink, though? Is that okay? Then that doesn't happen in your scenario.
But PvPers are forced to use coins, even though they could simply just take resources and trade them for whatever the value would be.
Well, that's the point Lakes was saying. Like, what if gold coins or whatever coins that you have are only purchasable for non-tradable items? Basically, it's a sink.
I'm okay with that.
That's a sink, and that would correct the problem. That would actually, I think, that would make everybody and every kind of like problem that I've seen on these forums and every other justification of why they think it's a terrible idea. If you can do that to where you use those coins or you use your own money to purchase those things, they're non-tradable at that point. You're sinking those coins into a cosmetic item to make your EK look nicer. But the minute that you could start to sell those items, like I can buy a building for $75, sell it for the equivalent of what you can buy that building for with the amount of coins, and then get those coins and buy in-game items to help benefit myself running into another campaign, 100%. That's the problem that I think a lot of us would agree that they would regulate. And I don't think that that's going to... I mean, they're pretty intelligent. We don't see the entire story, and we could what-if this to death. But as long as that's the underlying factor, if that is stopped right then and there, then I don't see a problem with coins, and I think that would actually resolve most of the issues.
I'd be okay with that. That, in my opinion, is a reasonable compromise, because I just do not want to see, a group of people who they go through and they farm, they get whatever resources they get out of a campaign. They come back, all they want are more resources to take back into a campaign. They don't care about the gold. They don't necessarily care about the buildings and all of that stuff. They just want the campaign stuff. And now you're forcing them into a set economy based off of Artcraft's cash shop. That's my issue, and
So I think we could all agree on this segment of coins is there has to be a barrier between your credit card, purchasing items, and transferring into in-game resources. Mm-hmm. And I think the guys at Ace are going to say the same thing because they don't want a pay-to-win scenario, or anything that you purchase with gold coin. I'm not even going to go that way. So basically, that's that. Now let's talk about how it coins essentially develop player behavior around them. There's a couple different points that I kind of, again, it's a giant what-if scenario because we don't know how they interact, but they kind of brought it up in the news post about transporting and PvP. Coins are actually an inventory item, which I think is really neat. You can kill somebody and your shit goes onto the ground and you can take it. And you can lose it, which is great. And then there's ways to transport. Do you transfer a lot? Do you transfer a little? How many people you need to bring along with you? So there's a lot of cool things that go along with that. And then the fact that players can mint their own money, and you can, like Valor, I think you said before, wouldn't it be cool if somebody became the Iron Bank in a campaign, which would be kind of neat. So how do you see, Valor, how do you see players' behavior changing? Because is it going to change at all because of it, or is it just going to add more stuff to the game?
I think it's definitely going to change. As a price is set for something tangible, we're assuming that they haven't taken our suggestion. People will want to find the most efficient way to farm coins, farm those particular types of resources.
Why are they farming them?
Because they can then take that, buy real-life things that they can then turn around and sell.
Let's assume that you can't transfer. You're buying. It's a sink.
Okay.
Let's assume that. Let's see how does player behavior affect the actual campaign world. That's what I want to talk about. The actual game. I don't really give a darn about the.
I mean,
the internal
again,
games.
coins aren't going to have a big impact on campaigns. In reality, when you get in there, you can't bring anything else in. Is this? I mean, as long as this is still what you're intending. You can't bring anything else in. You can't bring. It doesn't matter how much gold coins you have, because there's no new resources outside of what's already in the campaign and what you're getting from the campaign, or what you're able to craft from the campaign. And so, inside a campaign, gold coins are pretty useless. I mean, maybe you can take them out and then...
Well, it's a way of transferring wealth, though, just like in any other microeconomy, especially in a game that lasts, let's say, 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you were able to secure a mine and you wanted to bring out as much as you possibly could, that it's a lot more compact and efficient way to transport gold or whatever resource is.
Go ahead, Lex. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, the only problem with that is now you're doing the trade-off of you're making these cute coins, but you could have used that for making new armor for your guys. I don't know how it's going to work. We don't know if you can make the coins and then transfer them, how Valor was saying, in a compact area, then melt them back down to the ore.
He said that you could do that, but you'd lose a lot.
Then they would lose its value. So it's a give and take. The player behavior, I think the coins are really going to evolve around the economy and the people that want to make things look nice within the EK. When it comes to the PvP and people strictly playing for campaigns, I may only trade my raw resources for raw resources that I directly need, because coins are nothing to me. I'm not going to use the coins to buy buildings. I'm not going to use coins to do anything else. Buy cute paints and other unicorns. I don't really care. I want my ore or my items in that game, and I want to trade for something else so I can make the things to help me win in maybe another campaign. Let
me throw out a general scenario for you. Let's say you mine 1,000 lumber, okay? And somebody has 1,000 stone, but they don't want lumber. But you have another guy that's willing to buy lumber for gold. You can lug all that lumber to a guy, and then you can easily transfer the gold because it stacks higher. You can carry more of it on your person. You don't need a caravan or anything else like I would imagine you would for that amount of lumber. And you can bring it to the guy to buy stone. Or you could slowly sell off the lumber as you get it to save up enough gold to go buy that stone from somebody else. And instead of, maybe you have a guy coming to you for the lumber, and he buys it from you over time, or a bunch of people do, and then you can save up and buy the stone for your castle later on. And then you don't have to transfer a large amount of lumber for a large amount of stone.
It could help, and it could help, like you were saying, even just getting it out of that area. You have set amount of space where you can carry things out, and you just happen to be able to secure an area long enough to mine it for a few hours, and you get 1,000 gold ore. At that point, you want to get all that ore out instead of just leaving it there. And the only way to do that efficiently in one whole, hey, let's get this and get the hell out of here because everybody else is going to be coming, you may have to melt it down and do your thing, make it into gold coins, because you need to do it quick and efficiently. It could be a strategy, and I could see it being utilized as a strategy within the game, but I don't see it being the currency within the game.
Well, here's an interesting question, and I see Onrez is talking about we're hiring him to transfer stuff. But I mean that's another good point. You could pay somebody a small amount of coin to do different things. Maybe even in Eve you do have people that do transport stuff. Maybe you could get somebody to do that. I think. Well, here's a very interesting question, which I'm interested in learning or seeing it actually develop. Each campaign, because you're so limited to what you can bring in for, at least for the games that we're going to play, because we're going to be playing mostly the high risk, high reward type campaigns where you're not going to be able to bring in that much stuff. Each campaign is going to have its own little micro economy because of different. Maybe one campaign has less stone than lumber, or maybe you start off in an area, whatever. I mean, the resources are going to vary in concentration from campaign to campaign, I have to imagine. So the value of a gold coin in the previous campaign is going to go through its cycle of being highly valuable and then inflated at the end. And then all of a sudden you have to get used to a new economy all over again. And then the EK is going to have its own economy for all their own players that do all whatever they're doing.
Right.
So,
but what if those people that are functional resource farmers, the gold coin won't mean as much to them because they want the actual monetary raw materials out of that to make something else for themselves, whether it be armor, whether it be new weapons, whatever the case might be. So if you pay me in gold coins, it's nice, but now they get to melt it down back into that raw material, and they lose something for it. So in my opinion, it's worth less than the actual raw material itself for the functional player.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, I think value is going to change. Value is going to kind of alter over time inside of a campaign, and I think it's just going to be interesting to see how people react to it. Especially different campaigns are going to be a mixture of different people for a lot of the time. So people are going to come from like one game where gold has or a coin had a high value of, let's say, 100 points, and then all of a sudden in a new campaign where their method of getting ahead was farming coins, and all of a sudden the coin is half the value in this campaign, and then all of a sudden they have to shift their play style, which I think it offers a lot of new gameplay factors to it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great point that I haven't seen actually talked about on the forums anywhere, is that based off of where guilds are in campaigns, gold will have a different value to them within the campaign. And what's interesting, and again, I'm going to keep going back to a problem, is that gold will have its official value based off of what you can buy via their shop in terms of buildings or whatnot, whatever that US dollar conversion is. And so now
I don't know if it's going to be
able to trade, artificial value within a campaign.
If it stays as a sync, I don't think it's going to have too much of a value. It's just a player's going to say, I really want that new fancy castle in my EK because it looks awesome. I'm personally going to save up the 100 coins or 1,000 coins, but most players who don't care about the housing aspect of things aren't going to be worried about it and not going to hold the same value, because if it's a sync and it's only for cash shops,
again, as long as it's a sync,
right.
I'm okay with it. It's when you're able to start buying VIP tickets or access with it. That's
definitely a problem, because now you're transferring wealth in a way that just kind of makes things out of whack. Now, here's the really interesting question. I think this is the last. I think before we go to the last part where we're going to take a look at what the community's saying in that thread that you posted today. Let's see if we can peer behind the curtains and try to guess, why did they make this decision to go from a bartering system to a currency system? Do you have any guesses, Valor?
I'm gonna go with their ability to monetize the game. It would have been unbelievably difficult to leave the system as it was and not have a currency, and it's something that they even recognized before. I've heard some mumblings here and there that they were really going to have to consider some sort of currency. I think it's simplicity. For the player-driven economy, you can do a barter system. It adds different elements of.
It's fun.
It's fun. It's also a lot of work, and will that be appreciated and valued by the common person who is not a crafter? And is maybe not even a hardcore player, they just enjoy the game. Mm-hmm. Will they want to have to deal with the bartering system just to buy a piece of gear? I saw Primal, he mentioned that it would eliminate the barterers, the people who serve as those middlemen.
I don't think so.
And I agree. I think that they'll still have a place, but I think that it simplifies that, so that if you wanted to go through, you could go through, convert your all of your wealth into gold coins, and then buy whatever you want to from whoever. So I think simplicity was their biggest issue.
I got 3 points that we didn't bring up, and I just remembered them. First one is, gold will probably have a higher value other than just trading for different resources. What if you have a mercenary aspect to the game, where you hire mercenaries to upkeep your keep or whatever that they had, or the thralls that you can hire? What if their upkeep is gold coins? Because you got to pay your mercenaries money. So maybe instead of they just sit there and you got to feed them or whatever, you have to actually pay them coins once a day, once a week, or whatever it happens to be, and that gives you a reason to go farm coins. I think it's another type of resource you have to collect. Two, I think this is more for a MOBA question. Does it keep the casual player something to do during a losing campaign? It's like, all right, this campaign is lost, but I'm going to collect as many coins as I can, because now I can go and buy a castle. Just like I'm farming games even if I'm losing, but I'm getting enough IP to buy that new champ. It's the same thing.
I don't think
like that?
so.
No?
Because of the import-export rules that we don't know a whole lot about.
Sure.
It's gonna really rely on what you can bring out and how often you can bring it out. And I think Todd actually posted on that earlier today. Was they talked about the import export, and they may have to do some tweaking on how much they want the flow to come out or go in, and the amounts and all that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of that stuff, the unknown right now, is going to control that style. I think that they bring up a very good point that the actual PvPer, and I think Primal has been saying it in the chat, and I agree with, is that the actual PvPer may not care about these coins. They'd rather have that resource to be able to use for something else. And I think that the coins themselves, they make a economy stable. I think it does have to do with what Valor was saying, a lot of a business model as well, on top of just making their game a little simpler in the economy aspect to really help jumpstart an economy. Once you have a stable currency, an economy can flourish.
Right.
And the beginning part, when it comes to bartering, it's a little harder for that economy to get going, because at that point, people don't know how much something is necessarily worth when there's no cash value assigned to it. So you're going to have to guess and really figure out. And that's kind of the fun part, is figuring out, like, dude, how many chickens is my sword that I just made worth to you? And that's a fun aspect of the game. But I don't see the coins being something that the hardcore PvPer necessarily cares about, especially when...
Unless your guild needs those thralls to guard your keep and stuff like that, that's going to be something you're going to care about. But here, my whole point is, you know, you guys are running with a long-time PvP guild. You care about PvP, and you're going to dominate whatever way you want to do. But for the guy that has a 3-person guild, 4-person guild, is playing on the low-risk, low-reward campaigns where you have high export rules and you can bring out a lot. Maybe if he's losing, maybe if he doesn't care if he wins or lose, maybe if he can just bring something out, maybe he spends part of the campaign farming gold, and that keeps him playing the game longer. Because, you know what? I might not win and I might not care, but I can log in and try to farm some gold and try to kill some people and get some gold so I can bring it out and buy a shiny new castle or something like that. It keeps people playing. It's player retention stuff. I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at, which I think is, you know, a pretty good thing where something that you affect in game can actually give you something long term. Because for somebody like you, Lakes, you play the game for leaderboards, ladders, winning, and the pride of being the best. That's
baby.
That's what you play for. But a lot of players out there are either not as good at the game, don't play as seriously, and just enjoy it for the sake of it. They need a reason to keep playing when winning is completely out the window. And I think that's one aspect that allows people assuming they actually care about the eCapo. Maybe we'll get to that later in the show. But Val, did you want to bring up? I mean, you had an excellent discussion on the forums that I chimed in with a little troll post. But you had some good stuff. Todd jumped in. Is there any good points that we can bring up about this to kind of wrap up the subject?
You know, honestly, I think that we've covered the worst of it. What I think,
Did you say the worst of it?
The worst of it. Look, again, I still there's a few key questions I still would like to see answered, but you know,
give me your top three.
I think we should go ahead and just touch on the two things that were brought up in chat real quick with Onrez saying, you know, hey, don't forget they said precious metal, so it's not just gold, and so the value of coins can still be determined based off of whatever, and there could be a number of different coins. You know, again, though, it's going to come back to how they handle what they're purchased, you know, what you can purchase with them. And as long as they address my concern there, I'm okay with it. But unaddressed issue aside, that's, you know, that might just turn into, oh, yeah, here's gold coins and nobody cares about the rest. Just like, you know, copper coins in whatever game we play. Once we've played for more than 10 hours, copper's...
I want to buy a Crowfall T-shirt with my coins, and it was mentioned in the chat.
If I could use those coins to buy my Crowfall hat that Pan told me she was going to get me,
nice. That's the way to go.
I'd really appreciate it. That would be really cool.
You know, and somewhat staying on topic, Primal also brought up, you know, how you know, that forces you to collaborate with other players, guilds, alliances if you do not want to keep up with the economy yourself.
Is this your segue?
So this, well, not quite.
Oh, it would have been perfect.
It will be. It
perfect.
Will be. So you know, in a system that did not have a set currency value, you would be able to create sub-economies where within this group of, we'll say, PvPers, this is what is valuable, and the rest of it be damned. And so, depending if you had a large enough group of people in an alliance, or we'll say you had enough vassals, you could create your own little sub-economy and determine yourselves what is valuable and what should be the currency.
I want to pause right here, and I know everybody hears it all the time, but make sure you get Gamevox and join the conversation. We'd love to have you on, chime in. I mean, there's some really awesome things going on in chat right now. If you're not scared, hop on Gamevox and join the conversation. We're only joking. You come on if you want, but if you don't, whatever, it's fine. Keep watching. I think the second topic. I mean, we went pretty long with that first topic. It was a pretty good one. You wanted Valerie. You wanted to bring up alliances and vassals. So I'm going to let you run. I'm not going to let you. I'm going to say you should run the discussion on what that's all about. Go ahead.
When people think of alliances, the common thought, especially in this Crowfall community, is zerg. Everyone is terrified of the zerg. They're terrified of a zerg being successful, and they want Artcraft to do everything in their power to prevent zergs from being successful in Crowfall. Mm-hmm. Now, the definition of zerg is a very ambiguous thing, but one of the things that has been touched on without any sort of firm factual information is that there will be a fealty tree within Crowfall. And what we're hoping is that this will, we know that there's a fealty tree in the EKs. What we're hoping is that there will be a fealty tree within campaigns. Whereas if Guild A is really powerful and is able to go out, dominate maps, and is always competing for winning the campaign, other guilds can swear fealty to them, bend the knee, and they can receive a portion of the profits when upon a successful campaign. This is something that people wanted to know is, how would a vassal system be able to help hinder a zerg as opposed to just a straight-up alliance? Lake, do you have any? I mean, were you able to take a look at that conversation at all, or you have any thoughts on that?
I have, and first of all, I think we've talked about the Zerg concept quite a bit within this game, and how the Zerg is going to be controlled and maintained by specific scenarios and set rule sets within this game. Friendly fire, losing part of your gear, or the loot options, the physics, a lot of different things are involved within the Zerg concept. But the Uncle Bob concept could be applied a little bit to where I align myself with X amount of guilds, make my side a little stronger, they get a payout, I get a payout, we all get a payout, we're good to go. But it depends on the rule set. And I think that's where it really boils down to. The dregs, for instance, if you're on the losing side, no matter who you align yourself with, unless you talk about paying them on the outside once you get out, like who's going to willingly lose a campaign or help out someone else to win without having that guarantee of getting something in return? I could see it. It's an option, but I think there's a lot of things controlling that whole Zerg, or let me just go ahead and group with a lot of people to cause an Uncle Bob effect, is that the rule sets themselves and what kind of campaigns, whether it's the dregs or you're going to play the guild versus guild or the alliance or the God's Reach or anything like that, all that stuff is controlled by a set amount of teams within an area, or it's tri-realm, or it's a free-for-all, whether it's friendly fire. Like all that stuff really controls that. There's always a possibility for it, but I think the risk versus gain of being able to lose a lot within the game, I don't see it being a very huge factor within this as a Zerg concept. Maybe a control point concept, but not really a Zerg.
Yeah, so, Dragon, I'll set up a scenario for you and see if, what you think about it. You have, we'll say, 6 guilds all in the same campaign. 2 of them are 100 people, and all the rest are 50 people. Clearly, one of these 200 guilds, and we're in the dregs, every guild for themselves, whoever, winner take all. The 2 primary big guilds, 100 people each, they're very successful, they have sound tactics, they're well trained, etc. Clearly, one of these 2 is going to win. As a 50-person guild, would you be willing to ally with them or become a vassal? I mean, or even as a 100-person guild, would you be willing to ally with a 50-person guild even though they don't bring near as much to the table, and then be forced to split the profits 50-50?
That would have to be done before the campaign itself, though, because
not necessarily.
No,
because you could do that inside of a campaign.
All right, we're in God's reach now, and you're on the opposite side of a god. Your gods aren't the same. You're not fighting for the same thing, and now you're going to align with them.
Though.
How are you?
I think that's different.
So now you're talking. You want to talk free for all, to where everyone's kind of on there?
We're talking every guild for themselves.
It's not GVG. It's not faction play.
It's not.
Whatever.
Yeah. What I think would help, because if you allowed everyone to just be allies, then it would be very easy for one of these 100-man guilds to ally with everyone else, and you'd leave the other 100-man guild facing what's that math? 400 people ish. Well, I shouldn't have put set numbers on that. But you've got one guild of 100 people going up against like 400 people. Whereas if you had a fealty system, the other guilds might actually be less inclined to swear fealty based off pride, and might be more willing to maybe work together. So that's where I'm seeing a value in the fealty trees. It would help prevent the two 100 person guilds from allying up and then just sweeping everybody. And but it would encourage guilds who are obviously not going to win to work together. Yes, some of them might not receive as much, but they'd still be able to at least get something out of it, even though they would have clearly lost had they tried to go up against two 100-person guilds that allied together.
So I guess my first question is, in the dregs, I haven't read anything yet, but how exactly is it going to work with siding with each other? Are you going to be able to do it in like the hierarchy style tree where you can go ahead and say these are going to be my vassals, and it's all set up within there? So almost like making a guild within a campaign or an alliance structure within a campaign. Is that the concept we're going with? Or are we interpreting a lot of different things? Because in my mind, free-for-all is free-for-all. And
I mean, in any scenario, if somebody is capable of winning and somebody else is capable of gleaning some success off of that win, you will almost always see at least two people start working together. Just because
what do they get off it? Like if you're
the people who have sworn fealty to the winners, or if they have an alliance system who are allied with the winners, they will receive a portion of the reward, whatever they're able to export. And so that's where I think that a fealty system, or a vassal system, would help prevent just two large guilds from working together, because it would actually be in their best interest to just go ahead and fight each other and maybe find some you might see it just kind of divulge into two groups of people. But
I think it really depends on what the risk factor is. I mean, if you have these buildings and stuff and your keep or whatever, and you need to protect them, you might say, screw the rewards, I need to save my castle, I'm going to swear fealty, whatever, because I'm assuming you can break it. Yeah. Obviously, because you could backstab people and whatever. So I mean, you can join them for a week, and see what happens. Or
just smaller guilds working together to take down the tyrant. Like that is something I can see. But I mean, like I said in the beginning, it's an unknown. We don't know how that system and the mechanics is going to play out within the dregs, because it's supposed to be a free for all. But how do you have a side? Do you set? Is it preset before you even go in? Or can it be set at a set period of time? I think an easy way to do that is once the game goes on, like after a set amount of days, weeks, whatever the case might be, or a percentage of that campaign completed time, that side or your structure is set in stone and you can't adjust it after that. That would take away from a lot of the political aspect. I don't know how they plan on doing it. I'm not even saying that's the right way to do it. It'd actually make me mad if they did that, but I mean, we don't know. Maybe you guys know. Maybe the viewers know. I haven't read anything about.
There's nothing set. The one thing that I can say, if I live in Austin, this is my one little tidbit of maybe a little bit more information than what others might have. Is when I talked to Todd, I brought up how if he wants to make this game like Game of Thrones, which is what they've said in the past, there would need to be some sort of fealty system within campaigns. And his response is, that's kind of what we're trying to do. And he didn't get into it any more than that. But that's what they're trying to do, because that would allow for that backstabbing, for that political maneuvering, climbing the ranks, and maybe a 50-person guild could screw a 100-person guild out of winning, while that 100-person guild beat the other 100-person guild, and that 50-person guild won the campaign. So that's why I see value in the vassal system as opposed to just straight alliances. But I do know that there are going to be a lot of large guilds, a lot of large communities who historically have brought numbers, Goon's most well-known, who would rather have an alliance system because it would ensure equality amongst all the guilds.
Now here's the biggest part of this. Having vassals and all this other stuff is all well and good, but the systems need to support it. There needs to be proper UI. There's supposed to be proper mechanics. Yep. There's proper taxing, tribute functions and all this stuff. It can't be just like /fealty guild, and now you show up on a little UI icon with like a tree, and you're now beneath them. It's got to tie into territory control. Or let's say, it's got to work like, Todd brought up civilization. That's stuck in my head. I mean, like, you need to be somehow be able to point out in game where your territory begins and ends in a nice color or something else like that, and you can see the boundaries somehow. I don't know how they can do it. If they can do it, I'll leave that to them to figure it out. And then when you swear fealty, all of a sudden your lands increase and you gain more stuff with that. And I think you have to tie all the vassal and alliances, rather than just being on paper. There has to be game functions that surround it and support it, or it's just going to be frivolous and kind of silly and whatever.
So one of the things that I'm absolutely against is systems that help facilitate strength in numbers and people winning based off of how many people that they have within a campaign or on their side. That takes away from a lot of the fun within the game, because all it really takes at that point is two large guilds to group together, swear fealty to whoever, you guys work out some sort of deal, and now every other small group of people in that game are now at a disadvantage because you're fighting half of the server because two people group together. That takes away from all the skill, all the fun. Sure. Yeah, it's a political game, but at that point, you just ruin the game for half of the people within that campaign. So now they're either going to have to join, and let's just say these 200 people are the worst PvPers ever, but because they have 200 people zerging, I guess, an objective, but I mean, we talked about the way that they can control that, but still, 200 people, you have 100 frontline tanks that you can't get across, and they're blocking the way with their physics. Like, there's tons of systems out there that, if you support that, you just ruin the game for a majority of the people playing, and you maybe made, 2 guilds happy? Congratulations.
Well, here's the thing. You're splitting the rewards with, half the server now, assuming that there's some kind of split function like that.
Yeah, I mean, there'd be something along those lines, but, it would be a economy of scale, where you would simply win enough campaigns based off of your alliance that it would mitigate the potential losses you'd incur because you didn't have the quality or enough numbers because of your quality. So, I think that, the big thing is, somebody actually brought this up, it was Scree, and he said, hey, what do you guys think about, party sizes? It's like, well, let's take that because nobody knows. We're just going to assume that they do the typical 5 or 6 or, I guess 5 or 6. Let's take that and make that big. Let's talk about that on a grand scale. Yeah.
Let me jump in. Let's save this because we got 2 people on the line that want to talk about topics that we just covered. So let's bring them in. Yeah. Erythodon wanted to talk about meaningful objectives, collision, zerging, that whole point that we brought up, and how that might actually affect those giant guilds that you have that Lakes was really worried about. And I hopefully Gamevox works. It worked well in pre-show.
We tested it.
So, Erythodon, hopefully you can hear me on stream. I'm going to type in, I'm bringing you in, and let's drag you in. Let's now unmute you. And Erythodon, if you can hear us, you are now on. What's up, my friends?
Make sure to mute the stream before you talk.
Yes. Turn down your radio in the background.
Right, turn down for what?
All right, go ahead.
So some of my examples are going to come from our gauge since that's the biggest thing that's come out in a while. But I feel like people need to look at collision more because I don't know how many of you guys have played. I know Valor's played Arcade, but you can wipe out a whole raid because they're running into each other in the choke point, and you drop the meteor. Like, literally 40 people dead.
Yeah. Then
So,
go ahead.
That's territory or like using your environment to your advantage. That's definitely PvP tactics, but the mechanics themselves is what I'm talking about. Being able to group. So let's just say you took out 50 of my 200-person zerg that's trying to control a point. Yeah, you took out 50 people. They're going to respawn, but I have 150 people, which is, at that point, I mean, we could do the math. It's less than half of the server because you just killed 50 people, but I still have a vast majority of people on my side able to help control and win a campaign. So
yeah, and I think what Lake's trying to get at is that if you have a system that allows 200 people to group up, you have like 4 war bands of 50 people each. That encourages and supports what most would consider a zerg. Now, if obviously equal forces, they could be competent. I don't want to get into all of that. We'll just assume that 100 people or 200 people is a zerg. That is what we think that Artcraft should try and avoid, that even though people want to be able to have those sorts of UI support, that they should avoid.
all right, well, I get that, but I mean, when I was leading the raids in Arcade, I had 200 people, whether or not I had a big enough UI to handle it. So it was just, honestly, it was very abrasive to have horrible UI on that. But besides that, the other thing I wanted to definitely mention is, because I'm not trying to take up too much of your guys' time and everyone else's time.
We'll cut you off. Dragon, he loves cutting people off.
The strategic points that, for instance, that they talked about in one of the videos, I mean, that's a big deal. If you overcommit in your numbers and spread yourself too thin, just that 1-2 hour period, you could lose territory. And if there's multiple guilds you need to worry about, then you can't. But having multiple objectives as opposed to like Arcade, where it's like, ooh, everyone pile on this one spot, is kind of a big deal as well. And then friendly fire.
Well, I mean, right. Okay, go ahead, Lex.
So, first of all, yes, you're right. Multiple objectives, you overextend, you lose something. However, that's assuming that you have 200 people led by an idiot. Now you have 200 people, or majority of the server, led by someone that's very strategic in their play, aka 2 well-respected guilds that have been doing something for a long period of time. They align themselves together, and now they have the infrastructure, the structure within the ranks to control multiple people and large groups of people, and they're able to control set stuff without overextending. They still control majority of that map, no matter what you do or those points within it. It's just strategically playing the map with the amount of people, and because they have that many people, they have more wiggle room for error. They can mess up a little bit because they have so many people to help bring themselves back into it.
It's in early win conditions on that one. I think that's where that really comes into play. If you get too big of a zerg taking over the map, I think that's what. I'm going to bring you back down to the other chat channel. We're going to bring in Scree. Scree wanted to talk about how EVE alliances handle things and how that all comes together. So I'm going to bring him in here, and hopefully he knows what to do. And for some reason I have him on local mode. Scree, you're on. Your mic and your headset is off, so I don't know what you're doing. So once you get that
himself.
Yep. So you need to.
I'm
Scree's a showstopper. That's for sure.
While he's figuring that out, the thing is that my last point on that is that I don't want to see the UI support one person having 50 to 100 names on their screen as their warband, because in my opinion, that enables the quote-unquote zerg. Let people deal with it. You can deal with it. I've seen it done. Yeah, you can deal with it.
Scree, are you there?
Yeah, I am. I was just letting him finish. Yeah, so, zerg's been a problem in every game that's had PvP since the dawn of PvP, right? I highly doubt that they're going to come up with a solution that people haven't talked about, in the last 20 years. So what they have addressed, though, is the fact that campaigns end. So if you're getting your ass beat by, Uncle Bob, guess what? It's going to come to a conclusion. You move on. Maybe next time You don't join the same campaign as that guild, right? There's multiple campaigns, multiple servers. Unlike the EVE Online game where everyone's on one server, you're not forced to play with that same organization each time. So I think that's really all you can worry about now. The game design systems that you guys talked about absolutely going to address all the, the zerg mechanics, friendly fire, etc.
Yeah.
But more to the point, an organization that's got 400 people, that is a challenge to manage. Okay, in the history of EVE, guilds have fallen apart due to internal politics countless times. History repeats itself. Large organizations are a threat, yeah, but they tend to have their own challenges to face. And Lakes was mentioning the fact that organizations will have to cover more territory. They need more resources. They've got a larger castle they're building, etc. The fact that they have to split up to control that is a solution to zergs. You now, instead of having one 400-person zerg, you've got 4 100-person zergs. That wins. That solves that zerg problem.
I think it depends, right? Because when resources are a little scarce, or they only come from specific areas, especially in the dregs, and later on within that campaign, they're going to be a little more scarce. So having 400 people being able to fight over those scarce resources and their set respawn points, or wherever the case might be. I mean, we're assuming some things, but one thing we do know is that they are going to become a little more scarce, and you have more people to control a specific area. You have 400 people to feed. There's a lot of different problems that we talked about, like food is another problem that we haven't discussed.
Food,
So now you have 400 people that you have to feed. I entirely agree with you. I like some of the solutions, though, that people have brought to the table with set party sizes or whatever the case might be, which also helps limit the... I'm not scared of zerging. What I'm scared of is... Or not scared of. What I don't like is when you're automatically at a disadvantage because of you having 300 people less than the alliance that may be going on, because it does take a large part of, or it takes away from a lot of the skill involved within the game. And they plan on having this robust combat system, and it really takes away from the player experience when you start to have these kinds of fights, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I agree, but there's not much you can do, beyond requiring that every guild be 25 players and turning this into a first-person shooter. Zergs are by nature a side effect of a sandbox game where players can arrange themselves into organizations. It's unavoidable.
All right, I want to just jump in right here. Scream, appreciate you coming on. I think we're getting into a giant what-if scenario when we really don't know how combat, different systems kind of play into effect, where their resource scarcity kind of downplays zergs and all this other stuff. There's a lot of gameplay elements that are now coming into territory. Wouldn't it be cool if? So, Scream, appreciate you coming on. Thanks for being our super-duper mod, keeping the strong-arm bro in there and banning everybody that gets out of hand. Thank you much. I'm going to put you back there into the normal area. Arez jumped on, and he had a point that he wanted to bring up, and I think it's a question for you, Lakes, and he's going to jump on here in just a second, and he's going to talk about...
The final 1v1?
All right, Arez, you're now unmuted. Go ahead. Ask Lakes that question you brought up in chat. Go ahead, bro.
So I enjoy the type of way you guys throw around the questions. I guess mine is, since we are limited to 3 disciplines, right? That hasn't come up, right?
Right.
So, if you can only get coins from a rare drop, how can we, you're going to have to choose to be less skilled and, to gather coin. So, I mean, you're going to have to make a decision to either be an alchemist or be a miner or something. So, I think it actually helps the PvPers to have people like myself out there money grubbing, because, we're putting ourselves at more of a risk to gather coins than you guys are, because of you've got 3 disciplines, all DPS, maybe a mitigation and 2 DPS. Right. I can't match you. I can't match you one-on-one. So right. I mean, and even if my class is supposed to be one of those ones, like they said that I should match you, if I'm spending my disciplines to allow me to generate coins, I'm at a disadvantage. So I think that actually helps balance it out.
I'm not saying that I don't need crafters by any means. I think we've had this conversation through chatting on when you guys are doing your podcast.
Yeah.
So I agree. So one of the things that I'm scared about for people like you per se is now they haven't discussed it, but what if I have a second character that's a crafter and I can log that into the same campaign and I essentially made you worthless? Like, that is something that scares me for the people that are very involved within the economy realm, because believe it or not, I do like crafting a little bit, and I like it enough to get me ahead. So if I can make a second character that's a crafter and roll it into the campaign, this is a little off topic, but I do agree with your point. So I'm not going to I don't have any really rebuttal. What I am going to do is like go on a side note and say that I'm nervous for the dedicated crafter that they allow multiple people into a campaign because they take away your efficiency.
Let me go ahead and interject as well, if you don't mind, because I also see where you're kind of going with this, Anres. As a crafter in a campaign, and you have the ability to make gold coins, the gold coins inside of a campaign, their value, as we were talking about earlier, will change based off of the whatever campaign you're in, the whatever resource.
Age of the campaign, the later in the campaign,
exactly.
More stones, more thralls have gone. Something. You're right.
There's a lot of that, and I see that unless they do not tie coins to something of monetary value, real life monetary value, you could be losing literally real money based off of just the age of a campaign, thus eliminating your interest in using gold coins at all.
No, it's an inherent risk. I do. And I also see players like myself who focus too early in the game to accumulate coin and running to my vault instead of getting that into, sweat equity.
Yeah.
Right.
To actually help the campaign win, because I'd rather get 100% of 30 coins than 30% of 90 coin. You know what I mean? Or you know what I mean? So what is the
math,
percentages
baby.
there? Yeah, it's all about the math.
Man.
So, it's going to be really interesting, and I think people like yourselves who are more PvP are going to need to be more aware of players like myself. Am I a help or a hindrance? Am I, in all honesty, am I dragging you guys down, or I'm helping lifting up to campaigns?
And I don't think, like I was saying earlier, I don't think the coin is going to be worth as much, especially in a campaign, or even outside of a campaign.
It depends on how big the economy is, though.
When it comes to me and you, Anres, I would much rather trade you for a raw material that I need or an actual item versus giving you that coin. Because
no one says you don't have to do it. You can't do that, though.
Right, and that's what I mean. Is you might be more inclined to take that ore, because if I gave you gold coins or whatever coin, silver coins, you will have to melt those down to make a raw material to craft something else, and you may lose that value of what that coin might be. So I think it's a way to condense way to condense that currency and maybe make it more movable and a way to control it a little bit. But I still think for the overall me and you practical players, an actual raw material is going to be worth a lot more.
Yeah. I think you see it in a lot of games, even like games like World of Warcraft. You have these big-time crafters or the AH masters that all they do is play the auction house. You'll see very often people go, all right, I will directly trade you X for Y going through the mail constantly, and money's not even traded. So, you got a hardcore guy that wants to do the whole trading monetary thing, and you got a hardcore PvPer. You guys might set up a special deal and say, here, I'll give you this and you give me that, and we'll do it on a weekly basis, and you don't even need the gold coins because who cares? But I think the gold coins helps facilitate the one-off player or the group of 4 players to try to get stuff from the larger players within the campaign. I think that kind of helps bring everybody together, not just some of the too taller or higher up people in the hierarchy in the campaign. So, all right, do you want to plug your show for next week? Anything you want to spit out there, or tonight? Is it on tonight?
Oh yeah, we're on later tonight.
Oh, I thought you were.
I think. Oh, hell, I don't know. They just call me.
I saw a tweet.
Oh, okay. That's right. You did. Yes.
They just tell me. They just call me. But absolutely. But to be honest, I really enjoyed the show. I plan on stealing some of your guys' points and dragging the rest of the people into it. It's good stuff, guys.
Keep it going.
We almost expect it, right? Because it's a big community conversation. So the more that we can contribute to everything. People have been blowing up these comments on the forum. So we're really glad everyone's been very vocal in their ideas. It's awesome.
Yeah. So what we got? We got. Give me the Twitch channel. Give me the time.
In about a half hour on the MMORPG.com, the MMORPG.com.
I'll
Twitch
link it
channel.
in chat because that just confused me, and I know
It's
exactly.
actually MMORPGCOM. That's the after the slash of the Twitch channel. So hook it up, guys. Pay attention. We're going to be doing the after show, so we might bleed in with a little bit of that, depending on how
no worries,
tired
great.
Lakes or Valor is. So, guys, switch over if you want at 10 o'clock. So, guys, thanks for coming on, and I'm going to throw you back in there, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, we got one other caller that comes in, and we've been begging for people to call in. So I'm going to bring in this one other person. He wanted to talk about the UI aspect of zerg busting or zerg cultivating. So this is Zitz. He's going to talk to us a little bit, and I should have warned him that he's coming on now. So he should hear us now. Zitz, you are now live on the mic, so you're ready to go. What did you want to bring up about the UI?
You know, I'm sorry, Lakes, because I like you more than the other two guys, but I gotta disagree.
What?
I think you're so wrong with UI causing problems, and here's a couple examples.
I don't think I said that UI doesn't cause problems. What I'm saying is the mechanics themselves should be controlling in the amount of people. I don't care how it looks on a freaking screen, dude.
But when you deny people the option to easily form groups, to easily have these alliances, you're denying people what they want to do. And that's not going to help. If you're expecting them to go to the forums and make these alliances and this sort of stuff, that's just like this crappy system that you're ignoring. When the game is so important, it's so focused on, let's have these alliances, let's make it Game of Thrones, right? And if we're worried that doing that is going to make a Zerg, that's just sticking your head in the ground.
So I'm going to go ahead and jump in because I'm apparently not your favorite host. So, yeah, whatever. It's
the beard, man. You shaved the beard. You got pegged out a notch.
Yeah, there you go. It's not about keeping people from forming alliances or quote-unquote zerging. It's not about that. You can still get together with 200 people. It's just a pain in the ass.
Yep.
And the people who are successful at it will have a quality structure for being able to make it work. They're going to train their people how to operate in a 200-man group. It's going to be different than in Guild Wars 2, where you get one commander out on the war plot or the battlefield or whatever. You get one commander out there,
Follow the dot.
and then 80 to 150 people just follow him around the map, listening to whatever he tells them to do. All right, that's what we want to avoid. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see it be successful. And if you eliminate the ability to see visually on your UI, oh, here's 100 different people, that adds an extra level.
Well,
yes,
that's easy to eliminate, though. I'm sorry for interjecting, but that's easy to eliminate if you actually create a game that's worth protecting different points. Like in Guild Wars 2 and ESO, you just followed the zerg around because you took a castle, you got some points. You took a castle, you got some points. You took a keep, you got some points. You just went around and around and around. There was really no point for protecting anything.
You're making another point supporting what I'm saying, though.
Absolutely.
There's no need for that feature in the UI, and I'm saying, even if there is a need for it,
there's a need for it if your game sucks.
Don't fill that need, because if somebody needs that, then yes, either the game is not designed properly, or the people who want to play that way are trying to abuse something about the game, and that's where I'm saying. Go ahead.
Even if you have a game that's amazing and it's perfect, there are guilds like Lords of the Dead that are going to have these giant alliances no matter what's in the game, right? You're going to have Vent, you're going to have forums, all this stuff. In-game UI, this is going to help solo players. This is going to help small groups, small guilds to even the playing field. There are bad systems like Guild Wars 2 where it doesn't take any effort. But when you're in a game like Crowfall where you're following that giant Zerg and then the guy behind kills you, you're not just going to willy-nilly join anybody. You're just giving that opportunity for small groups to join together to fight the big guys.
What do you mean? So I'm slightly confused because I think I'm talking like mechanical systems and actual rule sets within those campaigns of how you can group and what you can do. You keep talking UI,
but it's not just UI. It's not just what you see when you tell people you can't form a group, when you tell people that you have to go out of the game to find these alliances, when you do all those things to put barriers.
I think that's terrible. You should be able to have a way to find groups. I think I actually said this in past
we said it 20 minutes ago.
I said it 20 minutes ago, and I said it to Thomas and Todd when I talked about how they need to have guild and player management concepts to where people can find groups or other people to play with efficiently and group together efficiently. I think maybe I was misunderstood when I was talking about how I think that the mechanics should be that you should have ways to prevent large groups of people forming together to do a strength by numbers tactic.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing is that he's saying that based off of an understanding that guilds have decided you need 200 people to be able to compete against the rest of the guilds. He wants the common person who may not be a part of the larger coordinated guilds to be able to easily join up with any number of people and play in those campaigns. And I think what we're going to come down to is Artcraft telling us we'll look at that rule set. If you have a scenario where you don't have a guild, then I wouldn't get into the guild versus guild campaigns. If you are in a small 5-person guild, I probably still wouldn't get into the guild versus guild campaigns unless you have a lot of friends and you're willing to work together. I would go into the realm versus realm, or the gods campaign, God's Reach campaign, or the faction versus faction, and that way, in those campaigns, go ahead. Let people have 100-person, 200 people on their UI. It's whatever. It's going to turn into massive fights regardless of anything else. So that's where I'm saying. But if you're going to be in the dregs, if you're going to be doing guild versus guild, if you're going to be doing these, side versus side campaigns, don't support it, because all you're going to do is you're going to encourage the large coordinated guilds to abuse that system and make use of it to cover up their inefficient or inadequacies.
Keegan had
hold on, I got something.
Okay.
Here.
Lakes, hold on. Let's break. Okay, go ahead, Lakes. I'm sorry. Go, just do it.
Thank you. So I'm 100% on board. I'm not a big zerg like that. I actually hate big zergs. I like small competition. I like small PvP. And I said this over and over again. I really enjoy skirmish-style tactics, which is why I personally find the Bloodstone rule set very intriguing to me, because it does help the smaller players that are going out to do something, whether they want to pick off that one person that's transferring that bloodstone to the area, to still have an advantage. They're still able to do that because people have to spread themselves thin in special tactics to actually win or transfer that stuff efficiently. And it still allows the smaller groups of people to be efficient within that campaign. And I think I said this on the LOTD forums, which they're not public to everybody, but I did say specifically that campaign rule set is something that I feel will benefit the smaller groups of people, and that's something that Crowfall needs more of. Even if it's in the dregs, where Valor was saying it may not benefit you to be a smaller group of 5 people joining in. I think that being in the dregs and playing a rule set like that does benefit small groups of people that are willing to align themselves with a certain amount of people to help win. I think the Order Chaos thing is kind of cool too. Like, I think
that's
that really helps out.
One.
That especially in a Bloodstone campaign or rule set, something like that is definitely gonna help those smaller groups of people be aligned naturally with other people to still win.
Let me jump in here because we're running a little late. We have one more caller that wants to talk about the functionality of gathering players, and which we talked about with in-game, out-of-game type of stuff. So Keegan, you are on. Go ahead. Was he ready? Nope. Sorry, buddy.
Right.
We gotta kick you out. Get your mic set up. We'll go in the after show, and you can put in your point there, and we'll talk about it. But I think this is a great show. We managed to go a lot longer than I hoped, which is good, because this way we don't have to talk about the Eternal Kingdoms and listen to me and Lakes bitch about that whole type of thing. Maybe we'll save it for next week, because that's always good fodder for the show. In any case, follow us at Crowns and Crows. If you guys want to shoot us an email, any feedback for the show or any questions, we'll get to them at crownsandcrows@gmail.com. Make sure you download Vox for every show. We want to thank all of our callers today. You guys really contributed. We really appreciate it. It makes the show a lot more entertaining. It's not listening to just 3 of us talk about the same topics every single week. Anything else you guys want to add before we end it? Did I miss anything?
I think we got everything. Make sure to follow us. You know, all
Like
the same
us.
stuff.
Yep,
like us.
Click the hearts.
And yeah, if you want to, go talk some shit, feel free to do so on LOTD. We love it.
I am not part of LOTD.
Yeah, that's not Dragon. Dragon's off
Please.
doing his own thing.
Yeah. In any case, that's the show for the week. We'll be on next week, Tuesday, 8:30 Eastern on Twitch. Stay tuned for the after show. We're going to stop recording. We're going to pop right over. Some of us need to take a break, so hop on Gamevox if you want to join the after show and shoot the shit with us. I just cursed on our regular show. Oh damn. Anyway, see you guys next week.